Welcome back on the Sunday morning. There is an alarming new discovery by medical researchers connected to the COVID-19 pandemic a few years ago. They found evidence showing the isolation of the pandemic may have caused teenage brains to age faster. With us to discuss this, along with some other health headlines, is primary care physician and public health advocate, Dr. Saju Matthew. Doc, welcome back.
Good morning, Hena.
Good morning. So let's begin with that study. It's from the National Academy of Sciences. It found that isolation was the result of the pandemic, not as an actual diagnosis, but it resulted in the brain in adolescent girls aging 4 times faster, in boys 1.4 times faster. So, Doc, what does this evidence tell you?
You know, this really is an interesting study because even prior to the pandemic, Hena, they were actually looking at MRI scans of children. And then when the pandemic hit us back in 2000, they looked at the MRI scans a year later, and guess what? We found out that there was this faster aging, 4 times faster in young girls, 2 times faster in young boys. Now, the cortex, as you can see there on the screen, that's the outer layer of the brain, almost like the bark of a tree. And that actually gets thinner as we all get older. But during COVID-19, for these teenage kids, the acceleration was much quicker, much like you said, due to isolation, kids not being able to talk to their friends and text their friends and interact with them like they normally would. The question is, now that we're back to normal, could there be some reversal of these brain changes? We don't know that.
This is troublesome. Is there anything that can be done for those teenagers possibly still showing the effects of isolation during that time in the pandemic, but now fast forward a few years later?
I mean, ultimately, if you think about it, just like any group of people, teenagers also require that social support system, making sure that we're listening to them, getting them back to some sense of normalcy. The problem is we don't have a precedent. This has never happened before, Hena. So trying to figure out, will the brains come back to normalcy? That's going to be the big question. But ultimately, now that the community is back open, hopefully as teenagers get back into their regular lives, that some of that brain function will actually go back to close to 100%.
Dr. Matthew, I want to stick with young adults. There's another study I want to ask you about. It's linking forever chemicals to kidney disease later in life when it comes to teenagers. How concerned should we be?
These chemicals called PFAS, we've known it's been ubiquitous in our society. They're in cosmetics, in Tupperware, that nonstick Tupperware that we use in our kitchen, Teflon hardware and software. The problem is, how do we get this out of our system? Scientists say that a lot of these chemicals are unfortunately in our body. But get this, it could take 1,000 years to eliminate these chemicals from our body. So the question is, how can we make sure that organizations like the EPA and the CDC are trying to figure out ways to make sure that our water is cleaner and that there's some decrease in the ingestion of these products? But like you said, it is actually shown to cause testicular cancer, chronic kidney disease, change the gut hormones in our stomach, causing conditions like ulcerative colitis.
So, Doc, as a consumer, are you saying it's unavoidable to stay away from this? It's something the government has to take care of or take the lead on?
That's exactly right, Hena. It is so difficult to be able to tell my patients, hey, these are certain measures you can take to avoid them, because it's all over. It's ingested into the stomach and then goes to different parts and organs in our body. But not trying to cause any kind of panic here. We've known this for a long time. The big question now is, how can we reduce the exposure, like skipping microwave popcorn, avoiding consumption of like locally caught fish, and obviously drinking filtered water all the time.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.